So now we move on to our final panel. I would like to invite Dr. Adi Osman. He is the head of emergency services of the state of Perak, a senior consultant emergency physician at Hospital Raja Permaisuri Bainon Ipoh, the chairman of Emergency Critical Care Ministry of Health, and the chairman of Ipoh Emergency Critical Care Society. With the title Acute Kidney Injury in ED, what ECC provider need to know. Please welcome Dr. Adi Osman.
All right. So, Assalamualaikum and very good morning. First and foremost, I would like to thank the organizing committee for actually giving me an opportunity to actually discuss this. It's not new topics, but it's very important topics that I personally think as an ECC provider, we should have this kind of, we call it a knowledge. And this is actually a few conditions that kind of people overlook, especially in day-to-day, we call it ED practice, right? My name is Adi Osman. For those who cannot remember me, this is how I look like, okay? So we talk today about acute kidney injury in emergency department and what ECC provider need to know. Right. So the reason why we have to change my lecture today because a few minutes ago I just been vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine. So this is just a few minutes after vaccination. People say you become handsome 300%. I'm not sure you are the one who can judge, right? But I can see that the Kusi is growing more hair now after vaccination, few minutes ago, right? So, right. So, if you still hear me, I think basically what I'm going to discuss today, basically to discuss about what the things that you need to do when you see patient with AKI, and of course, we'll come up with a few steps So this is our first case discussion. All right, this is actually a gentleman that involved in motor vehicle accident, and if you can see from the picture, he actually trapped between these almost collapsed dented vehicles for a few hours. So my first question, okay, just looking for this picture, what do you think the possible injury and the possible complication of this injury? What do you think? Right. So this is quite obvious. Okay. If I can answer myself because I'm the one who asked question. Okay. This is a crush injury. So in a crush injury, hypothetically, if you receive a ambulance call, okay, you are the MA respond to this ambulance call, and then the history from the caller is one gentleman was stuck between these vehicles, dented vehicles, let's say for 3 hours or 6 hours, okay, and the driver is actually try to get the pen, extract patient out from this almost collapsed vehicle. So if you are the AMO or paramedic that's supposed to respond to this kind of injury, my question is, what is the first thing that you're going to do? Okay, Muhammad Badrul Hisham. Who is Muhammad Badrul Hisham? Your name is there. Muhammad Nur Afan.
Yes,
itu kita. Okay. Nurasiman Taufik. Yes, what do you think?
Kita kena ikut algoritma.
There is, boleh. Okay. Because I ikut algoritma apa?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Lambat sangat nak jawab. Okay. Biar I jawab sendiri. Okay. This is actually a crush injury. What is actually the algorithm address?
Yeah. Kita
Remember,
kena,
you can we can always refill you.
yeah, kita kena check for DRABC lah.
Okay, what is
And
the complication of crush injury? Okay, you done DRABC sampai Z. So what do you need to do now? This is crush injury, crush complication of rhabdomyolysis, acute kidney injury. Okay, in this patient, okay, let's say you receive this kind of phone call. What is the first thing that stuck into your mind that you're going to do on the field before you bringing this patient while the bomber trying to extract patient from this almost collapsed vehicle? Yes, Muhammad Hisham. Oh yeah, sorry. Whoever lah, nama. So, number one, you know this patient is high risk of acute kidney injury, right? So this is actually a type of patient you probably need to give a fluid bolus before, during, the best is during, before patient extracted dari this almost collapsed vehicle. Okay, how much? Okay, 60 kilo, I will give probably around 1 to 2 liter. Okay, 60 kilo man. Okay, so give fluid 1 or 2 liter. Why you want to plan the basis of patient extracted this vehicle? Okay, this is actually one of the prevention of rhabdomyolysis, acute kidney injury, right? So this is actually the one on my left. Is how the normal kidney look like. Okay, we have this pelvis. Okay, this is cortex, this is medulla, and this is the most important structure. Okay, this area whereby you have all this loop and Henle as everything. All right. The one on the right, if you can see properly, this is how AKI, okay, damage kidney, a gross anatomy of this AKI. All right, you can see they hardly resemble the normal kidney. Can you see that? Muhammad Badu Hisham? Oh, Nur Siman. Right. So can you see something weird thing on this kidney? Right? Can you see this? Tak nampak? Cannot, right? So this is the most popular sign now. Okay, this is the most popular sign now. Okay, if you check into Facebook, everybody is actually looking for this sign. Okay, they are trying. Okay, during while I'm preparing this lecture last night, I also seeing H in this kidney. So for those who don't know my joke, tak apa. So okay, right. So going back. So what is the problem in acute kidney injury? Okay, or I'm going to use this abbreviation AKI. Okay, the main problem pathophysiologically there is decrease in kidney function, which normally occurs few hours or few days. Okay, as a result of this reduction in kidney function, there will be retention of this byproduct of our normal metabolism, urea and nitrous waste, which later on will form ammonia and uric acid, number one. Number two, there will be dysregulation of this extracellular volume, okay? And most of the time, there will be some form of electrolyte derangement, basically hyperkalemia, you can get hyponatremia, okay? Sometimes you get magnesium, okay? Dysregulation in magnesium, phosphate, and calcium, right? So, so what is the cause of acute kidney injury? That those who work in emergency department, need to know. Okay, the most commonest cause of acute AKI in ED is these four. Okay, so there's probably 1,000 or few thousand causes of AKI, but the one that we normally encounter that emergency department is these four. Number one is a low blood volume, hypovolemia. You have trauma patient. Remember trauma patient that the one that I shown, the picture that I shown previous in the first few slides. Okay, hypovolemia, pale, bleeding. Okay, intravascular volume depletion. Okay, and because of the reduction in perfusion to the kidney, it causes AKI. Right. Number two, inflammation and vasculitis, nephritis, nephrotis. Okay, nephrotic syndrome. You have this collagen disease, you have connective tissue disease, SLE, for example, rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, nephrotic drugs. Okay, okay. When we talk about nephrotic drug, it's not just what we call it a normal legal pharmaceutical drugs. Okay, we have a lot of cosmetic now. Okay, in which they are contain a lot of mercury. Okay, and some of them they are nephrotoxic. Okay, we never know. Kuh putih, kuh hitam, kuh hijau semua tu kan, right? So this kind of drugs, some of them are tested, and most of them are not tested and sold as so-called illegal. Okay, illegal. So some of this drug is the one that causes AKI, especially in those people that you see in your ED. Okay, and there's another thing. Those days when we talk about pre-renal like AKI, we actually never thought of these two entities. It kind of when we say pre-renal, the first thing that struck into our mind is probably this is hypovolemia. But now there's a lot of evidence to say we need to actually prove that the two entities which contribute to this AKI. Number one is actually cardiac failure, okay, cardiorenal syndrome, okay. Number two is when you have a liver failure, hepatorenal syndrome, right? So if you ask me which category, which one you got to classify this kind of AKI, I personally think the best it will be a pre-renal, okay, pre-renal cause of AKI. All right. Don't worry so much about this diagram. The thing that I want you to see is this thing, okay? And because of, for example, this is intrarenal AKI. The problem is actually you have some form of plaque there. As a result, okay, your urine cannot pass through, even if it's actually filtrate at this Bowman capsule, okay. You still get this oliguric, okay, oliguria, and cause a low renal or low urine, okay. And as a result, the movement of potassium, okay, is actually deranged, okay, and as a result, okay, you can excrete potassium, so patient will be presented with hyperkalemia. Okay, so potassium normally been excreted in exchange of sodium, right? So that's why sometimes you get patient with hyponatremia. And because of this problem, derangement and electrolyte, okay, you get a metabolic acidosis, you get problem, okay, because you know renal is one of the buffer acid-base balance in our body, all right, apart from lung, right? So how you define? This is the most commonest used classification of AKI, acute kidney injury, KDIGO, which stand for kidney disease, improving global outcome. And if you can see here, okay, there should be increase in creatinine more than 0.3, okay, milligram per deciliter, right? Within 48 hours, increase in serum creatinine more than 1.5 times from baseline, okay, which is known or presumed to have occurred within prior 10 days, That is not my voice. There's somebody else punya anak. Okay. And urine less than 0.5 milligram per kilogram per hour for 6 hours. Right. My question is actually, if you work in ED, okay, that you remember that picture that I showed you earlier in the first few slides. If this patient presented to you with increase in, let's say, creatinine and increase in urea, okay, and the next question your friend asks you, okay, Nur Siman, whether this is AKI, yes or no. Okay, so what going to be your answer based on this criteria? The answer is impossible. Okay, why? You need 48 hours to see the increment of creatinine. Okay, even you have baseline, okay, you need to know what is the baseline. Okay, even though you have a creatinine level, you need to know your baseline, right? And even if you use urine, okay, let's say less than 0.5 mil per kilogram per hour, and you need to wait for 6 hours. Okay, imagine how much damage can be done to patient kidney, okay, if we just need to wait for 6 hours. So if you ask me, can you use serum creatinine or serum urea to actually determine whether AKI or not in emergency department? Okay, I will say no. Okay, no. Okay, in fact, I never ask what is the creatinine or urea, okay, to determine AKI, because impossible, unless we're talking about patient that been in ED for the past 1 day or for the past 2 days. Then probably I can sort of using this kind of classification, right? So next question you got to ask me, okay, itu tadi, how do I determine this patient is having AKI? Okay, my answer will be, we're going to discuss at the end of this lecture, right? So, okay, this is actually, it's not mine, actually songlap daripada emergency medicine cases, okay, a stepwise approach to acute kidney injury in ED, all right? This is actually the 5 things that you need to know, okay? I'll go one by one, don't worry. Number 1, rule out 2 immediate life-threatening condition, okay? Somebody call you, let's say Nurisman Taufik, okay? This patient is suspect to have AKI, okay? Mr. Nurisman, right? And the creatinine is high, okay? So what is the first thing you need to do? Okay, as a ECC provider, okay, it's a big okay, ECC provider, what is the first thing you're going to do? Rule out life-threatening condition, okay? Even though you don't know what's the cause, don't ask about the cause, don't do a diagnostic, emphasize on diagnostic at this point of time. Remember, there's 2 things you need to do. Hyperkalemia is electrolyte imbalance that will kill patient, right? So what do? You do ECG, okay? You take the electrolyte, okay, BUS, okay? You do BUS because you want to see the level of potassium, right? Number 2, which most of the time is associated with hyperkalemia, okay, and associated with hypotension, intravascular volume depletion, is severe acidosis, okay? These are few conditions whereby you might need arterial blood gas, right? So what next? Next, assess for adequate perfusion. Okay, remember airway, breathing, circulation, some similar, okay? But this one is actually the C, okay? Assess for adequate perfusion. So how you assess perfusion? This kind of basic, okay? You ask for history, physical examination, and for those who graduate from ECC, we expect you to do a focus examination. If you still remember, sorry. Okay. Why you need to do focus? You want to assess for perfusion, okay? And you want to know the possible causes of shock. Either this is just a hemorrhagic, vasodilatory septic shock, for example, or this is a cardiogenic shock, okay? Reason why, because you need to treat accordingly once you actually confirm what type of shock you are dealing with, right? Third, assess for both whether this patient is actually having pulmonary or peripheral edema. Okay, how you do it? You can assess the JBP, okay? Auscultate the lung, do a focus ultrasound for this pretibial or look for pretibial or sacral edema, okay? If there's no evidence of pulmonary or pulmonary edema, some people will give you a challenge in patient with let's say severe heart failure. You need to be careful with this challenge, okay? Two things, okay? The reason why we need to do this, because the management is going to be different, okay? If the AKI with perfusion, we going to your medical officer, your PACA, because this is a very important information that determine the next management. Because in patient with adequate perfusion with pulmonary edema plus minus peripheral edema, we need to consider pulmonary renal syndrome, etc. Right? Things that what you call it, not that common. Things are vasculitis. We need a clinical clue for example, in inflammatory arthritis, etc. Right? And those with adequate perfusion with peripheral edema but no pulmonary edema, okay, we're going to do something else, right? So I don't know why it. Okay. So what we're going to do? Okay. If there is AKI with adequate perfusion, okay, this type patient is kind of logic. Okay. If hemodynamically stable, that we start this patient. Similar, if the perfusion is adequate, there is peripheral edema but not pulmonary edema, okay, we give approximately similar, okay, the dose is almost similar to make things easier. If there's no improvement in renal function, we need to consider the pre-renal. For example, good example is hypovolemia despite peripheral edema, okay. It just this slide, it just should show you the other possible things that you need to consider. For example, patient with low serum albumin, we need to treat underlying causes and things that normally occur in this type of condition. For example, hepatorenal syndrome, whereby this patient might require an albumin. Patient with venous insufficiency or limb edema, this patient probably requires crystalloid or consider compression therapy. Okay. If there is a drug that induces edema, need to assess the offending drugs. And for example, in severe myxedema, hypothyroidism, okay, this type patient, we might need to start patient on L-thyroxine, okay, and this type patient need a more frequent, intensive kind of monitoring, right? Okay, rule number 4. Yeah, this is actually, if you ask me, to remember my question just now, okay? Serum creatinine and serum urea, one reading of serum creatinine in emergency department not going to be reliable, and I'm not going to say useless, okay, but it doesn't change in terms of management. So if you want something that associated with management change, okay, this is what you do. Patient come to you, somebody call you, Nurisiman, Taufik, this patient serum creatinine is high. Okay, the first thing they need to do is stop into your mind is whether this is AKI. Okay, you're going to ask your colleague, okay, and or your husband, okay, or your our husband, okay, and you expect them to do this. Okay, number 1, measure this PVR. What is PVR? Post void residual. Okay. For some of you can do bladder scan, you can bladder scan. If not, then put in urethral catheter, okay, and try to get the amount of this post void residual. Masih dia, okay, to make things simple for you all, okay, you put in catheter, okay, and then once patient is in, okay, the catheter is in, Okay, you measure how much is actually that left in the bladder. Okay, I'm going to tell you why. Okay, number two, okay, sebab, okay, this is actually important for obstructive causes of AKI. Okay, for example, you have a big stone at the ureter, or in most conditions, most of the time you have this BPH, benign prostate hyperplasia, okay, presented to you with AKI because of the obstruction there. Okay, when you put in of urine. Okay, number two, take a urine, the same urine, okay, and do a urine dip. What do you want to see? Two things, blood and protein. Okay, people always ask me, Tadi, you want to see something else, calcium, leukocyte. I say it's not going to change much. Of course, leukocyte, blood. Okay, why? If you see a blood and protein, this suggests a nephritis syndrome. Okay, why is so important? Nephritis is not that common. It's important because if patient presented with nephritis, now presented with AKI, okay, it determines how aggressive you're going to treat the AKI, number one, how aggressive your next step in terms of investigation. Okay, what happens if you don't do this? You're going to treat AKI, you're going to wait, okay, until you get the definitive diagnosis. By the time you get definitive diagnosis, it will be days or weeks, okay, and you know, in this type of patient with nephritis, okay, the more you wait, the more the damage to the kidney. Okay, that's why this should be, even though it's not that common, should be the first few thing that you need to do. Okay, number three, put the catheter, okay, then you monitor urine output. So to answer my question I asked you just now, okay, if I don't have, if the serum creatinine or serum urea is not that reliable, what else do I have in my ED? Urine output. That's why monitoring urine output is very important. Okay, that means different in terms of oliguria. Okay, urine less than 0.5 or urine more than 2. Okay, so that determine the next step what you want to do. All right, so urine output is the most important something that you need to monitor, something that you need to actually establish when dealing with AKI. All right, number four, okay, avoid nephrotoxin. Okay, I expect those actually graded from ACC. Okay, you should be able to advise our colleague, our friend, this thing. Okay, because majority of patients that presented to your emergency department AKI, they're actually on this type of drug. ACE. Okay, you have a lot of patients with hypertension that presented to you with AKI. Okay, is on ACE, or patient on NRB. Okay, patient on, for example, gentamicin. Okay, and NSAID. Okay, so if you ask me, what is the most important slide in my presentation? This is the four thing golden rules for AKI workup. These are the four things that we do. Okay, with these four things, there's a lot of management change, right? Number five, you need to consider imaging for post-renal AKI. Okay, not all cases. Okay, when do you need to consider? You try free challenge, there's no improvement, in which this patient is less likely is pre-renal. Okay, so either renal and worse is post-renal. Okay, and most of the time why we do imaging, KUB or this thing, because of the post-renal. Okay, you do a urine deep test just now, is normal. It's normal. There's no blood, there's no protein. So it's less likely this is intrarenal. So it's either post-renal, okay, post-renal or pre-renal. Okay. The PVR tadi, okay, remember you scan ataupun you don't know how to do a bladder scan, you put in catheter. Then once you catheter is in, okay, you see the PVR is less than 100 mil. This probably less likely the BPH, right? So what is the possibility that can be, for example, the things that beyond this, okay, and you need to actually found the proper causes, right? And of course, why we do scan, okay, this is actually the main reason. If I want to put sort of a priority, why I do scan in patient with AKI, because I want to see hydronephrosis. Okay, why hydronephrosis is important? Okay, which type of hydronephrosis that is actually treatable is actually a post renal. For example, you have a big stone stuck at your not your patient pelvis, not pelvis, renal pelvis, or a big stone at your PUJ junction that's stuck there and causing a hydronephrosis. Why it is important? This is a surgical emergency, right? So when to consider, okay, some of you in klinik kesihatan, okay, some of you see patient, most of you see patient, okay, tak ada orang tak tengok patient, right? In what type of patient you need to consider to refer to your senior, your FMS, to refer to your specialist or your nephrology, okay. Number one, inadequate urine output after 4 hours management. Okay, you resuscitate patient, you start patient fluid challenge, okay, but they hardly any adequate urine output. All right. Unexplained blood and urine, protein in urine. Okay, definitely this type of patient required some form of extra kind of aggressive workup, looking for intrinsic renal disease. Okay, you resuscitate patient, but despite this initial management, the creatinine is rising and getting worse. Okay, or worsening in terms of pulmonary status despite this initial management. Okay. Right. Common question people ask, what type of fluid you use in AKI? Kind of controversial. Okay. If you ask me, I use Ringer's lactate, a balance. Okay. If you have balance solution. Okay. This smart and salt ED trial. Okay. For those who have interest in this, okay, you can look at these two trials. And just bear in mind, if you start patient on Ringer's lactate, physiologically, this Ringer's lactate is slightly acidotic. Okay, and AKI they presented the metabolic acidosis. Okay, so this type of patient, you need to actually calculate properly how much fluid they're going to give, right, based on requirement, okay, etc. Right, but how much? Okay, what type of fluid? It should be a balance. Okay. If you ask me, the cheapest that fluid that available is your Ringer's lactate. Right. How much fluid? Okay. Remember, how much fluid is not really important. The question you need to ask, what do you want? Why you give fluid? Why you give fluid? Number one, you want to improve cardiac output. Of course, by improving cardiac output, you improve the tissue oxygenation. Okay. You want to give fluid so that you get the acceptable urine output, and of course, the blood pressure, the mean arterial pressure. Okay. I kind of disagree with the usage of this systolic and diastolic because it doesn't show much in terms of patient and perfusion. All right. So that's the reason why, okay, in ECC, we emphasize on the MAP rather than the actual systolic and diastolic blood pressure. Okay, so going back to the question that I asked myself, now I'm answering it myself. Okay, you give small fluid, small amount, small, but it should be a frequent crystalloid bolus. How much? 1 or 3, 2 or 3. Okay, okay. To get simple number that you always remember, a 3 ml per kilogram. Okay, and once you start this kind of boluses, okay, you're going to do a frequent clinical assessment. Okay, you can do focus that I'm sure some of you familiar with. Okay, why we need to do this? Because you don't want to overload the patient. Okay, how do you know your fluid is actually adequate? Go back to things that I mentioned earlier: urine output. Okay, creatinine going down. Okay, patient hemodynamically the MAP is better now. Okay, pH is less acidotic, then you know patient intravascular volume is actually been filled up, right? So, okay, when do you need to think whether this patient need to go for dialysis? There is mnemonic AEIOU. I normally don't use mnemonic because the problem in mnemonic ni, you ingat AEIOU tapi you tak ingat A stand for what, E for what, I for what, etc. Right? So for those who like to use mnemonic for your benefit, okay, A stand for pH, okay, less than 7.1. Okay, despite all your fluid resuscitation, fluid bolus, right? Electrolyte abnormalities, for example, hyperkalemia, okay, that refractory to the medical management. And most of the time, if I see patient AKI with hyperkalemia, acidosis, I'm not going to wait. This is the indication for dialysis. Okay. In patient that ingests, for example, nephrotoxic drugs, okay, in which this type of drugs you can dialyze, okay, or going through a hemoperfusion, right? Overload, okay, that patient overload presented with respiratory failure, okay, uremia with bleeding, pericarditis, encephalopathy, right? In fact, if you ask me, one of the most dangerous indication of dialysis in AKI, the one that worried the most, the one that actually carries higher mortality rate is uremic pericarditis. Uremic pericarditis is very difficult to treat. This patient we get tendency to get arrhythmias. Once they get arrhythmias, it's going to be difficult refractory arrhythmias. It's not about arrhythmias; it's all about everything. Okay, the lung, the heart, etc. Right. So this is actually the 5 probably to simplify the indication of this dialysis. Okay, okay. People always ask, Dr. Adi, nak bagi backup atau tak in AKI? My answer will be, if you give backup, okay, remember, patient acidosis, you give backup, okay, you're going to form more CO2, and this CO2 will be absorbed in the cellular, okay, because more intracellular acidosis. So most of the time, my answer is no, okay. But if you want to give, this is not the definitive measures. This is just temporary measures. Remember, it's just a temporary measures. This should not preclude the search for and reversal of underlying causes. Kalau patient sepsis with AKI, okay, you give certain backup. Don't think this is the solution, the vaccine for AKI. No, it's not. It's not just temporary measure. Okay, so bottom line, okay, I will give backup in patient AKI that presented with severe acidosis. This is a famous study. They call it backup ICU study. Okay, you can go even though the result is not much different, but there's a subset of patients whereby they are presented with severe acidosis. There might be benefit with this backup. So if you ask me, normally I'll give backup for those severe acidosis, okay, as a temporary measure. Right? Okay, so this is a take-home message. If you see patient AKI, okay, or in simple term, you've been so-called referred to you with creatinine high, okay, the first thing to do is rule out a life-threatening condition, okay, and most patient AKI simply required fluid and Foley, FMF, okay. Foley, why? Because you in emergency department, okay, your best monitoring, your best so-called diagnostic investigation is urine. Okay, so put Foley. Okay, and plus minus fluid. Some patient you need to give fluid. Okay, some patient you give fluid small amount. Okay, some patient you need a proper fluid resuscitation, and some patient we just require fluid maintenance. Okay, so remember these 3 things. Okay, right. So enough, you have clinical sign, you have urine output, you have your focus. Okay, and I don't believe in algorithm in AKI. because very difficult to actually come up with algorithm for AKI, right? So have a respect for new severe hypertension in setting AKI, okay? This type of patient might have so-called intrarenal causes that require this parenteral antihypertensive, okay? And further workup, okay? Remember, not all AKI require imaging. Kenapa kita buat imaging? To rule out obstructive causes or post-renal AKI. Okay, it's quite rare, but it's actually, if you can detect, okay, you're going to save patient a lot in terms of patient renal function. Okay, avoid nephrotoxin. Okay, resuscitation fluid, to make things easier, is Ringer's lactate. Okay, give in small boluses, 3 ml per kilogram, with the frequent assessment of fluid status. Remember this mnemonic, kalau tak ingat tak apa, okay, just remember tampal somewhere, okay. AEIOU, I'm sure by now you can't remember what is stand for I, okay. Backup, yes or no? My personal opinion, give backup in patient with refractory, bukan 1 pH is acidosis, not refractory. Multiple we call it investigation ABG showing refractory, despite fluid management, okay, patient still having metabolic acidosis. What I try to say, this is very dangerous. Backup can be can save patient, and of course backup will kill patient. So before you start, before you decide on backup, remember, make sure your fluid resuscitation, for example, been optimized. All right. So I think with that, that's all. Okay. Do I have time? Okay, the first question, Salam Boss, can we differentiate AKI, CKD, SRF? DKID, the answer is no. Okay, the answer is no. Why? Serum creatinine that you get, okay, we sort of become, not to say useless, but I want to say useless. The reason why, the serum creatinine, okay, we show, why you order serum creatinine, you want to see the renal function, okay? But renal function, the serum creatinine, you want to use the renal serum creatinine to look at renal function. The function must be stable. Function stable, then you can use that level of serum creatinine to say, wow, this patient is getting worse or getting better. AKI, CKD, SRF, you need a biopsy lah. Okay. Any of ED doing biopsy, kidney, not in the next million years. Okay. So the answer is how we can differentiate. Okay. You need to do a lot of things lah. Okay. You need to look at, you need to collect urine for 24 hours. Okay. You need to look at the ratio of the urea, what you call it, creatinine, 24 hours or whatever lah. So yeah, you can differentiate. Okay. But do you need to do that in ED? My answer is difficult. Is there going to change your management? No. AKI is AKI, tak kisah apa-apa. Tak ada beza. ESRF presented with hyperkalemia, severe metabolic acidosis, management sama je. Okay, right? So I hope that answer your question.
Okay, Doctor, we have 3 people from the audience who would like to ask. I would like to invite Mr. Afzanizam. Afzanizam Ismail, you can unmute your mic. You can ask the question.
I look like Princess Leila pakai ni rambut. This is not my rambut. This is my mic. But I look like Princess Leila.
Okay, so we have Mr. Asran.
I know most of you forgot about it. Yeah.
And Miss Razila Jaafar. Anyone of you can start to ask the question. So we have 3 guys here. We have 3 viewers want to ask question.
Okay.
Anyone can start? Mr. Afzanizam or Asran or Razila can unmute and talk and ask the question. No question. Okay, never mind then. So I think, Doctor, I think that's all. We just have to end this session. Thank you so much for the interesting sharing. Okay.
All right.
So thank you again.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. So, ladies and gentlemen, finally, we come to the end of our 2-day session. On behalf of the Secretariat, we would like to extend our apologies for any disturbance while the session was running. Thank you so much for the support. We really appreciate it. But first, can everyone unmute your mic? I hope everyone can unmute your mic. And once I mention the name, please give a big round of applause. So everyone can unmute your mic. All right. So please give a big hand applause to our panelists. The first one, Dr. Yong Chi Kiong. Second one, Dr. Muhammad Faiz. Third one, Dr. Ramzu Zaman Ismail. Dr. Chan Pei Fong. Dr. Azliza Wati Azil. Dr. Adi Osman. Dr. Muhammad Hafiz. Dr. Shaliza. Our MPK advisor, Dr. Azma Haryati. Give them a big round of applause again. Once again, everyone, thank you so much for our panel. And not forget also our sponsor, SMS Medical at Sendirian Berhad. Give them a big round of applause. Our organizer, Malaysia Paramedic Emergency Critical Care Alumni, Ipoh Emergency Critical Care Society, and of course, Institute Latihan Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia, Sultan Azlan Shah. Okay, now everyone, you can open your cam. So we have a virtual group photo, all right? So everyone can open your cam. We're going to have a virtual group photo, please. Yes, you can open up your cam. Everyone can open up your cam. Yeah, so these are the people. Well done, everyone. Okay, you can open up your camera. We will have a virtual group photo. Okay, we're still waiting. We have 393 participants today. Well done, everyone. That's a good number. Okay, we're still waiting. Okay, everyone can open up your camera.
Sekejap, aku buka ya. Nampaklah, Mak. Kena buang.
Buka lah Syana.
Syana, Pak Ika.
Apa Syana, Pak Ika?
Okay, open up your camera.
Cikgu
Saya
Tigi.
buka ke? Nampaklah, Mak. Nak buat kat mana? Balik kan? Apa?
Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Oh. Cakap lawan.
All right, I think the rest are having hard situation to open up their cam. Okay. All right, never mind. So, Secretariat, please take photo, everyone. I count to 3. All right, ready, everyone?
Ready.
Okay. Say cheese. 1, 2, 3.
Cheese.
Okay, another one time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, well done, everyone. Thank you so much. We do hope this 2-day session did give some precious information and interesting input to improve everyone's competency towards treating our patient. And hopefully this webinar will be beneficial for everybody. So please do remember to fill in the feedback form where we will send the link inside your Telegram group, and we will also view the QR code right now. So please, everyone, to scan the QR code and please fill in the feedback form. All right. So if you are not fill in the feedback form, you will never get your e-certificate. So please aware that you registered registration email and feedback form email is the same address. Please use the same address for your registration email and your feedback form so that you can generate the system can generate the e-certificate directly. So please browse through the catalog from the SM Medical. Right, they have so many things there. If you have anything that you need, you just can look through it and ask their personnel people and directly if you have any inquiries. So this is the moment. Thank you so much on behalf of the Secretariat. I would like to thank you so much, everyone, and the panels, the people, the audience that support this webinar. So stay safe, and inshallah, we will see you soon in the future. Thank you so much, and Assalamualaikum.